Welcome to A Bit of Insight with Lisa Mosbey, your weekly dose of health, wealth, and everything else. I can't stop thinking about how many people walk into the doctor's office with manageable symptoms or just a number slightly outside of their normal range and walk out with a prescription. They've been told that they may have to stay on that prescription for life. No root cause discussion, no life support, and no real questions asked. Hey, everybody. Welcome to A Bit of Insight with Lisa Mosbey, where wisdom meets real life. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce a woman whose journey in wellness reflects both education and heart. Jen Laurie is a certified holistic nutritionist trained through the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition and Functional Nutrition. She is a functional nutrition coach with deep roots in the science of healing foods. She also holds an honors certificate from the Academy of Culinary Nutrition. So yes, she knows how to make food both nourishing and delicious. Whether you're seeking better energy, hormonal balance, or simply a more conscious connection to your body, this episode is for you. So grab your mushroom coffee and let's dive in. Do you want to add anything to that, Jen? Welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here with you, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me on. I don't know if you just did such a great job introducing. I mean, I've been on this path for over a decade. I want to say that I have had interest in holistic health for a really long time. Something has always pulled me in that direction, homemade cooking stuff, but I didn't grow up that way. I didn't grow up with all that. It always intrigued me, but I didn't think I was good enough or could do it. And then everything changed. I learned that it's not as hard as we make it out to be, and that sometimes we have to quiet the noise of the system at which we live in to realize the truth.
Yeah. And I know that a little bit about your story, and I know that your journey started with a loved one, as did my journey start with a little bit of my own health challenges and a loved one. But children are a motivator. Anytime we experience trauma in our lives, we can stand up and fight. There's that I think there's a story that people tell about how a woman was in a car accident and her child was trapped under the car or trapped in the car, and she could lift that car right off him or move that door or rip that door right off because the adrenaline, the motivation that comes from seeing your child in pain. And I know you can speak to that was the beginning of your journey. How did this start for you?
Well, for me, I have four kids. My
Yeah.
kids now, I have three adult children, and my youngest one is 16. They are all very close together. So my oldest one is 21 right now. My youngest one is 16. So you can do the math on that one. But when they were younger, my 2-year-old at the time, my third child, he was really, really sick, and we were in and out of doctors, specialists. We were spending, I would say, on average, 8 to 10 hours a week. It was a full-time job, just
Right.
going to medical appointments.
Yeah.
And I remember dragging the baby along to all these medical appointments with no answers. Specialist after specialist, nothing. And all we kind of got was more and more diagnosis and more pharmaceuticals, but no answers and no positive prognosis, that's for sure.
Mhm.
And happy ending to the story is we turned all of that around. But that's kind of how it started. It started by having this place where my 2-year-old was borderline being diagnosed with failure to thrive. He was disassociating and just having, and the problems weren't just like, a skin rash.
Mhm.
It went through his whole body. His digestive system was messed up. His liver was failing. His skin was problems. He had neurological and developmental struggles. Like, it was everything. So when I say we were at like every specialist, we literally were at every specialist because nobody could figure out what was going on. And he was born perfectly healthy. So it wasn't like he was born with these struggles, it developed. And so um, that's kind of what started my journey. So I started reading food labels. That's where it started. I started reading food labels and I was like, well, what's in our food? Like, what are we eating? Because I'm trying to find any root cause because I don't know, that just naturally, intuitively, that's where my brain went. And when I started discovering what was in the ingredients of food, I became a mad woman. I came home, I literally threw everything out. My husband came home from work and he was like, "What are you doing?" Like, I'm telling you, we
They're
didn't
bare.
just do like a little dip our toes in the changes.
Yeah.
I threw everything out and we started from scratch day one because I had this little baby that was suffering. And when I learned that it could be connected to the food we were eating, that was it. Game over. No more processed food. No more going out to eat at fast food restaurants. We just cut it out cold turkey because obviously I just went real extreme because I was doing anything I could to turn things around for this child who was suffering.
Loved
And
ones are huge motivators. And, I want to ask you, why we don't settle for the script. So many families get sucked in because you don't know. We don't feel empowered to take care of our own children. We take them to the doctor, we ask for a solution, and we don't have to settle for a script. There are better solutions. So where I want to start, we have kind of a foundation of what it is, what motivated you, why you jumped into this field, not just dipped your toe in, but jumped into it. How do you define optimal health? Like the point before this prescription or beyond the prescription? Let's define optimal health and then let's walk this journey of how do we get there?
okay, I absolutely love that question because we live in a society where normal is not optimal health.
It's a script.
Uh-huh. And so when we look at like if for me when I look at optimal health, it's not living without a diagnosis, it's living without the symptom. The symptom is your body communicating to you that there is something going on. It's not called aging, just so you know. When I flipped everything over and upside down, my health started changing and I didn't know I was having problems. I thought that was just part of aging. And then my health started flipping significantly and I was like, oh, wait, light bulb moment. I'm not getting old. I am heading towards a life of illness if I don't continue, if I don't stop the patterns of things we eat, the toxins in our home, all of those things. And so the path to getting towards optimal health begins with really identifying your environment. What is in your environment? What is in your control? Because we live in a very toxic world with things we can't control. We can't obsess about that because we also have to take care of our mental health when it comes to when we're changing the lifestyle habits and the things we're consuming and things in our environment. It's important we don't go crazy in our mind also because we can become very obsessive in that direction as well. So we have to think about the things we can control. And for me, the first thing we started with was getting rid of ultra processed foods, getting rid of foods that were not necessary for our body to be able to function. That was the first step for me. And reading labels was key, understanding how to read labels. I spend a lot of time now educating people on how to read labels because I feel like it's that, teach a man to fish and he'll eat for life versus just doing it and handing it out. And I believe in empowering people to educate themselves and learn that you have so much power over the future of your health, and that there's so much power in like our bodies are these miraculous things that can really reset and balance if given the right opportunity and environment to do so.
Yeah. And filter, I mean, we've got our detox systems, our kidneys, our liver, our skin, our bodies can filter a lot of these things out. In addition to the food labels, the one that comes to mind while I'm sitting here thinking is also the chemicals. We can start with emptying out the food, but maybe your budget doesn't allow that. Maybe you can't just go out and clean everything out. But what can you do with the chemicals in your house? Can you get rid of the chemicals to start with? Find, vinegar is cheap. We're talking $1 or $2 a bottle. Water comes out of your tap. Lemons from somebody's lemon tree or lemon juice. Those baking soda, we're talking $1 or $2. These are cleaning supplies that we can use that, we can get some of the chemicals out of our house that we're breathing. And then slowly but gradually, if you need to, get rid of the foods that are ultra processed, like start learning how to read labels. You had shared with me before the show that you're going to be ripping through a number of products, an extreme number of products, analyzing all of those different ingredients. What comes to mind is what should happen before the prescription? What's the missing conversation that modern medicine is not having about our food to support our bodies? How do we start to look at those ingredients? Can you give us the shortened version, and we'll invite folks to one of your courses to actually go deep into all of those ingredients? But give us the highlights. Like, how do we get started even looking at the ingredients, whether it's in our cleaning products or the food that we're
Yeah.
eating?
So one of the things we can do is we can shift from ultra processed foods to minimally processed foods if we must stick with processed foods. So how do we determine the difference between an ultra processed food versus a minimally processed food? A minimally processed food is going to have ingredients that you could have in your own kitchen. It's going to have the basics of, none of those chemical names, no preservatives. It's going to have like oil and vinegar and some
Salt
herbs.
and
I'm just
flour.
thinking of like a salad dressing in my mind, right?
Yeah.
And so that could be very powerful switches right there.
Mhm.
So shifting that way and really focusing on whole foods, like shopping in the produce section and the fresh sections versus the freezer section. And what I have come to learn is that you can actually save a lot of money if you get away from ultra processed foods. Let me share a couple of things why. One, your body is going to be healthier and be more, and when you're eating more nutrient dense foods, you crave less. You're going to be snacking less. You're not going to be needing the extra calories because one of the things that became really clear to me early on is that a lot of people are hungry all the time because their body's nutrient starved, not calorie starved. And when we focus on nutrient dense foods, our bodies are able to handle and process it better. But also, we're going to be better balanced and not be always reaching for a snack because our energy systems are going to be fulfilled and supported.
Yeah. When we're getting all of those the different parts of the tongue makes me think of the is it 7 different tastes? We've got bitter, acrid, sour, sweet. I can't remember all the different ones, but when in Indian food, Indian culinary foods, they try to have all of those different flavors and satisfy the palate when you're eating, so that when you're done eating, you are not just full in the belly, but you're satisfied, you're satiated, and you're not going and grabbing for other foods.
I've
And
got one
and
more
we
tip.
go
Can
ahead.
I
Yeah.
interject for a
Yeah.
second?
Yeah. Yeah.
One
Let's.
more tip. As you were speaking, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to say this. One of the things that you can do that's free is slow down when you're eating. Be
Yeah.
in a rest and digest state instead of running, going, being flight or fight when you're eating. You're going to be able to digest your food better if you slow down, chew it, rather than inhaling it, because then your brain can now go, oh, I've eaten.
Mhm.
And you will typically eat eat less because it takes like 20 minutes for your stomach to communicate to your brain that you're full. And
Yeah.
when we're just mindlessly filling our belly up because we're in such this like rush society, we just become unaware and we stop listening to our body. And it's really important to slow down, chew your food, listen to your body. One tip I will give is to eat your protein on your plate first, not maybe all of it, but take a few bites of protein. It slows the blood sugar spike. And so that's going to help keep you feeling more satiated.
And don't eliminate fat. You know, we saw a huge rise in weight issues when we eliminated healthy fats because there's, sugars or carbohydrates, we spike faster. Proteins is a little bit less. And fat, that helps to sustain us for a much longer period of time. So by eating those healthy fats along with your protein and carbohydrates, that all plays into that feeling of fullness and being satiated. And we don't have to eat till we're full. We oftentimes talk about eating till you're full. It's best if we eat till we're 80% because we don't want to have that bloated, lethargic, overfull feeling. We want to give our bodies the ability to digest and absorb those nutritions or
On
those
that
nutrients, right?
topic,
Yeah.
on that topic, I think one of the biggest things that really has helped me on my journey is discovering the difference between feeling full and satisfied and the separation of that. Because I used to feel that full was the feeling I needed to feel to be satisfied. And when I was able to separate those two, and this is something I work with one-on-one with my clients, like let's discover what satisfied feels like instead of leaning on full as satisfied, because that's when we can start listening to our body better and more being more intuitive with our eating. But until we change that and shift that, we can't listen. We're not very intuitive eaters until we turn those things back on and learn how that feels again. And that's where like the support of a coach can help you to get to that place where you're like, okay, I get it. I understand it. Because it's something you really have to actually feel. It's like no one can tell you how it feels. It's something you have to experience for yourself to go, oh, wow, wait, pause. I get it. And so that's a really powerful shift that I try to help people experience because it's been so life-changing for me, not just with my health, but my relationship with food as well, which is really a powerful thing to shift because that is sometimes a struggle for a lot of people.
Yeah. What comes to mind is the that saying, do you eat to live or do you live to eat? Because when we live to eat, we kind of crush those sensors that are built into the body to tell us when we're full because we just consume. Gluttony becomes part of our lifestyle versus when we eat to live, we're listening. We're using all of our senses. We're not just digesting and shoving food in our mouth. It's like, is my stomach grumbling? Do I feel thirsty? Am I feeling bloated? Do these foods actually support me or do they cause digestive issues for me? It's listening is such a big part of mindfulness. I start from the optimal, what is optimal health? For me, I'm always looking at what's my optimal weight. And it's different. My optimal weight in my 20s was different than my optimal weight in my 40s. And I'm sure it'll be different when I reach my 60s. Our optimal is what we need right now. So I want to go from optimal. We talked about optimal health, eliminating bad chemicals, eliminating ultra processed foods. Let's jump into functional. What is functional nutrition and what does that mean to the listeners? How can we apply this practically and personally in our lives?
Well, functional nutrition is really seeking the foods that have the nutrient profiles to put our bodies back into balance. So, really, and that's individualized for each person based on what their needs are, right? And so, first, a lot of people come to me and they talk to me about controversial foods like soy. Is soy good or is soy bad? Well, it depends the sourcing and quality, number one. Number two, depends on the person. For some people, it can be the healthiest source of protein, and for other people, it can wreak havoc on the body. So everyone's a little bit different with it. And so functional nutrition is discovering where the imbalances might be and what foods will best support bringing that back into balance.
It's not one size fits all because we all came from different cultures. We've come from different backgrounds. We were raised differently. Some were breastfed, some were bottle fed. Like we have all of these
What we
different
ate
things
growing up,
happening. Yeah.
what illnesses we may have experienced growing
Yeah.
up, what environment, like thinking of like all the toxins that have been in our households over time that we didn't know about until later and then had to remove. So, or maybe workplace environments that maybe I think of like a dental hygienist and how many chemicals they're breathing in. I've talked to several who have experienced symptoms directly related to the toxins they're exposed to every day because of their profession. So sometimes it's like a work site thing that can cause these imbalances too, right? Because it creates this toxic overload in the body. And when our detox systems get overloaded, it can get blocked or like think of like a traffic jam. And if that traffic jam gets bigger and bigger, we start experiencing this toxic overload. We need to create those open pathways again so our body can get back into balance.
Yeah, exactly. Start moving, sweating, going to the bathroom. How often is that happening? All of those things. Let's back up here. I am doing, Mark Hyman does the function blood tests, the series of 100 different tests. Have you heard of that? Function is the
Yeah.
new, you can pay for it through. Well, I finally, what do they say? Bit the bullet and I go next week. So 10 to 12 vials. I'm going to get my blueprint. I'm going to get my profile. I'm going to see
Okay.
what that looks like. What kind of condition am I in right now? So I have a starting point. What lab results don't tell us what should we be looking for instead? Like we don't always see everything in the lab results, but we are getting clues. You mentioned it earlier when we first started. The body's talking to us all the time. If we're not listening, we're missing all those messages and we don't find out about it until we go to the doctor, until we get lab tests, until we do some of these other things, until we feel dis-ease in our body. How do we look beyond the lab tests or look instead of? What are some clues that the body has right now? And then if you want to take this into, should we have a foundation? Should we get some lab tests? Should we know what our baseline is for some of these things?
Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. That is
It's
a
got a lot.
lot to
You can break
unpack.
it down into two.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack. So, um, I think if you are feeling any sort of symptom and don't feel good, and this isn't like it's not a one day thing. Like if you just experienced it today because your ankle is swollen because you tripped this morning, like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like an acute thing, like you had a bad night's sleep because your baby kept you up all night and now you think you might be depressed or whatever. I'm talking about like consistent symptoms that are showing up on the regular, but that being said, I want to also add in that maybe it's not happening daily, but for women especially, maybe it's happening monthly or weekly because we have hormone changes that can be influencing certain symptoms as well. So I think it doesn't have to be daily, but if it's showing up daily, like you definitely know something's out of balance. You're either deficient in a nutrient, your body. So when we are feeling symptoms, it's our body telling us that A, we're either deficient in some sort of nutrient,
Mhm.
B, the functions of our body are happening too fast, too slow, or out of order, or we're experiencing some sort of toxic overload or a combination of any of those, right? But
Yeah.
those are the things. Like that's how we discover what the root cause is looking at that. And so looking at what symptoms you're experiencing, you can start to unpack that. But it's not just the symptoms, it's looking at what are the lifestyle habits? What is stress management look like for you? What does your sleep look like? What are you consuming every day? What's the pattern of your eating? How much water are you drinking? Are you getting out and getting fresh air and moving your body every day? So it's really unpacking the whole picture to identify where shifts can be made to kind of be able to start digging in to see where we can shift things to make some changes. I think that should be like primary right there. And then as far as lab results, now I'm in Canada. We only get what they give us.
Hmm.
And so we don't always have a doctor who will give us the lab results we want. We might have to seek outside to get the lab results we want. Baseline results are great. Like it's great to look at the baseline. And though know that there can be a lot of imbalancing and balances going on that aren't showing up in the standard tests that are done. One of the tests that can be done, but isn't a standardized test that's being done regularly, is like we think about like insulin resistance is a common problem for so many people. And we're testing fasting glucose levels when we should be testing fasting insulin levels. Because if there's any warning signs, it's going to come up on our labs a lot sooner. So that's just one test that isn't being done that would tell us something needs to change. And so I think lab tests can be valuable, but I don't think they're the full picture either, because I think it's also important to acknowledge that it's a snapshot moment in time. So I tell people if they have things kind of out of balance, I like to get them to go get it tested again to make sure it wasn't just a one off. Maybe you were fighting off an illness during that week that hadn't shown up yet. Maybe you were on a certain time in your cycle, so things were kind of out of whack. Maybe you cut your finger, so your inflammatory markers were up higher. Like, I like to see that it's consistent before creating any huge alarm bells, because I think sometimes we jump too soon without knowing for sure if it's something we need to be really freaking out about, if that makes
We
sense.
need to give the body time. Our body is designed to detox itself. I'm not a big fan of detoxing. People come to me often and say, I want to do a liver cleanse, or I want to do a peroxide cleanse, or I want to do this cleanse. And my question is always, why? Did you read something? Did you see it on Facebook? What makes you think that you need to do this right now? Like, let's look at what's happening in your body. Well, I just don't feel right. Huh. So that doesn't give us, that's not enough information to say that we need to do a parasite cleanse for that. So again, it's listening. It's like, how do we look at the body to see what's going on? Do we look at our skin? Do we look at our hair? Is our hairbrush full of stuff? Like there are clues happening all the time that help us to understand or discover what's happening in the body. It's the difference between treating symptoms and supporting systems. Our body can naturally detox itself if we give it the nutrients, the foods that will help the kidneys and help the liver and help the skin to detox and do those things. Do we really need a detox program? Maybe, maybe not.
I
Jury's still
love,
out on that.
I absolutely love because I just like I'm right there with you. I'm like, we have detoxification systems. We need
Yeah,
to support those organs to do their job.
yeah,
And we can support them through nutrients from food, through supplementation. There's things that we can do to support the organ to do its job. I am not a huge fan of these extreme detox protocols.
mhm,
I've had people go into healing crisis before where like their body detoxes so quickly, it starts impacting organ function. It's a scary place to be. I have a friend who landed in the hospital because of this.
okay,
And so we can create more chaos if we like fill our bodies with these things that put us into a huge detox. If
yeah,
you suspect that your body is full of toxins, doing an extreme detox comes with risks. And I don't think they're talked about enough because we're like selling these products that are going to put a person into this magical detox.
yeah,
And I think it needs to be spoken to like, how did we get here? And
mhm.
if we continue doing the things we're going to do, doing a detox
Doesn't
product
change.
isn't going to change you
Yeah,
6 months from now.
yeah,
It's really about what are the habits I can shift today that can be sustainable in long term, that's when you start beginning to have long-term results, is when you create it to be your daily habits. You create it to just being what you do, who you are, and how you choose to live. It's not about being ultra restrictive for 21 days and it's going to magically heal your body. It's about making the shifts in the timeline that works for you that
Mhm.
can keep you on the right path successfully long term.
And getting things moving. The way that I always explained it to my clients when they would come to me is, yeah, if we did a detox and we started to dump all of these toxins from your organs and from your tissue into your system, your blood is like a conveyor belt, and it's going to take all that stuff and it's going to run it through your kidneys and run it through your liver and run it through your elimination systems. And if you can't go to the bathroom and if you can't sweat, it's just going to continue to circle and circle and circle and circle, and it's going to get into your brain, and then you're going to have foggy thinking and bloated body and all of these. You're going to create this storm within your system. So you're going to get far worse instead of getting better if we don't start with the basics. What's going in, what's coming out, and how do we improve that system to start before we try to do anything else? So that's kind of where I come from on this. When you were talking earlier about root causes, we kind of opened this up with root causes. What is a root cause assessment, or what might that look like for someone who's experiencing maybe fatigue or bloating or brain fog? How do we assess and get to those root causes? What's the process for that?
A lot of questions. That's kind of like when I go and sit one-on-one with someone, I am asking a lot of questions of when did it start? I ask about family history, environmental. I'm looking for environmental causes. I'm looking for um, like stress is a killer. Stress has so much influence on how the body operates because if you're in an acute state of stress for a long period of time, it can turn off your digestion and now you're nutrient deficient. So it's going back to all those things and asking about every single symptom and when did it start, explain it, describe it. Um, and also asking, what have you done so far? What have you done that's worked or hasn't worked? Because that can also lead you down a path of discovery.
Mhm.
Um, Oftentimes, I find that people, this goes back to the first words you said when we started this podcast. Oftentimes, people are being misdiagnosed and treated with pharmaceuticals that actually compound the negative symptoms in the body. And we're taught to blindly trust the experts, and though it is a necessary system for our society to function, I think we just have to slow down and ask better questions when we do go to the doctor and make sure all things are being explored before we just try a pharmaceutical and really explore, is this the best option for me? Because oftentimes it's not the full picture, and our medical system is so jammed up that they don't have time. They're not given the time to even ask the question, so they're doing the
Get to
best
the
they can often.
Mhm.
And they're just not set up to successfully handle a lot of the problems that people have. When it comes to acute health, they are the magic. They are the magic when it comes to acute health. If I get in a car accident, break my arm, whatever. But when it comes to the true functioning of the body, there's some gaps. There's some gaps, some missing pieces. I mean, you can go to one of our hospitals and look at what they feed patients and see there's a big gap. Right? There's a big gap in either understanding, or a person can decide, come to their own conclusions as to why it is the way it is. But it's clear to me. I mean, when you look at that kind of thing, you go, "Oh, wait, what? Why are we recommending? Why is this being recommended for someone who has this XYZ diagnosis to consume?" Like, that doesn't make sense to me, but it's just what they're taught. And so I think we just have to get better at asking questions and um, seeking advice from multiple practitioners because no one person knows everything, and really finding someone who's going to take the time to understand, going back to the root cause here, someone who's going to take the time to really have that conversation and deep dive in with you to discover where it began and whether it's just like a simple nutrient deficiency, an extra support nutrient that needs to be in there, a lifestyle shift that needs to happen, whatever it might be. Ultimately, the root cause is always going to be a nutrient deficiency, an imbalance in the body, or a toxic overload. It always comes down to that, but we need to discover why. Why did we become to this place? And how and what do we need to do to get to create that balance again? And once we have the balance, we start seeing the progression of health. And then we go, oh, wait, this is what life should feel like, right? Because we have this baseline of health that we call normal, and everyone around us feels this normal. And then we don't start seeking to feel better. But for those of us who have, we're like, oh, wait, we are in control of changing these things and we can support our bodies in better ways. And then we can bring our baseline up to optimal and truly live the way we're meant to live. And we can show up better in every room we walk into and create a bigger, better impact in our relationships, in whatever, our passions are, whatever we are, setting forth to do in a day, we're going to do that much better when we are living at our best.
Beautiful. So, audience, if you're listening and you have a piece of paper and notebook in front of you, to assess yourself, start writing down what it is that you're listening to. What are you hearing your body tell you? I noticed that I had a lot more hair in my hairbrush when I got back from South Africa after having hives cover my entire body. I had to do a medicine because I was going to tear my skin off. I was so uncomfortable. I was exposed to something and it was wreaking havoc on my system. I did have to use a pharmaceutical prescription to get it in alignment. I tried all my tricks. I tried vinegar. I tried soaking in baths of smelly vinegar. I tried rubbing my body with all kinds of stuff and baking soda to neutralize. I could not get there without help. I did the pharmaceuticals. I started losing my hair. Crazy things are happening in my body because of what I did to it. And now I'm going to go get information. I'm going to use a blood test to discover this. But before I even scheduled that appointment, I sat down with a notebook and a piece of paper and said, what have I noticed? What changes am I experiencing? What dis-ease do I have going on in my body right now? My joints hurt, my knees hurt when I walk up steps. That's something different. So I'm writing it down. Help your care providers dig deeper. Like when you walk in prepared saying, this is a list of everything that I'm experiencing right now. What's the common denominator? What is happening? Like for me, it's sugar is a big thing. When I was traveling, I was eating sugar. I was eating foods that, you're eating from what other people are cooking and in foreign countries and different restaurants. I have no idea what I was consuming, but obviously I was consuming something that was not in alignment with my typical diet. And so this is part of that digging deeper and getting to that assessment point of what's the root cause of what I'm experiencing. And then on the other side of that piece of paper, flip it over and say, what would I like to achieve? Part of that assessment is where do you want to go? Do you want more energy? Do you want better sleep? Do you want clearer thinking? Do you want to have 3 bowel movements a day instead of none, or instead of 1 a week, or instead of 1 a day? What is it that your goal, what would optimal health look like for you? Because these types of ideas, these types of assessment tools, when you write them down and bring them to your healthcare provider or a coach, like Jen, who can actually walk through and understand the information that you're providing. And people who have studied and can make this correlation, that's how we get to optimal wellness, when we can discover and listen to the body. Jen, I do have another question, two more questions, I think. Red flags in wellness and marketing. What do you wish people, okay, I know, okay, I'll limit you to 20 minutes. Red
Right.
flags, wellness and marketing, because we're exposed to a lot of things, there's a medicine for everything, there's a supplement for everything, there's commercials, there's independent, individuals selling everything. How do we get some clarity around wellness, marketing, and what do you wish people knew?
Heavy. That's heavy. Okay, so educating yourself on ingredients, man. There's so many like healthy food. I'm telling you, if it comes in a box, it doesn't matter if it's gluten-free or organic, you guys. It's gonna have stuff in it that's not good for your body. So don't just look at the front side of the package. I think that's a really key. And one of the red flags to me when I look at ingredient and like when I look at supplements, for example, I spend a lot of time looking at supplement labels and ingredient formulations there. And um, when I look at them and I can tell that they have spent more money on the marketing than the ingredients, that's a red flag to me.
Yeah.
And one of the red flags that comes up a lot for me when I'm looking at these is they're always going to market the clinical studies of the ingredients. But when you dig a little deeper and go into the clinical studies and you look at the amount and source of the ingredient, it doesn't always match what's in the product, right? So they're
Mhm.
leaning on studies, but it's not like, and so that's a tricky part, right? It's a really tricky part to knowing about that. But red flags for me is when something says it's healthy and it has sugar in it. I just like
What if it's cane sugar?
it doesn't matter. Sugar,
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 sugar.
it could be honey, it could be maple syrup, it could be anything. Sugar, the body looks at sugar and responds to sugar no matter what it is. And I love ice cream, you guys. Like I'm not saying I never consume sugar, but when it stopped being part of my daily intake, it did change my life. And um I think that it is an ingredient that we don't want in supplements or health products because it can be counterproductive, right, to what is going on in our body. So that's a red flag for me. Anything to do with like food dyes, those are, you know, that is a red flag. Anytime when you look on a supplement package and the other ingredients is larger than the active ingredients, like that should be a red flag, right? It
Yeah.
should be a red flag. But that those are just a couple of things. And again, ultra processed food, all of them. It doesn't, there is so many products on the market that are trying to convince you that they're healthy that are not. And if it is coming in the grocery store in a package and there's like it's been processed, it's not going to be the best option, right? Modified, the word modified being in the ingredients is a red flag for me. So I think of cheese. I don't want modified milk ingredients. I want like milk
Yeah.
or cream, right? Like
Yeah.
there's those sorts of things, right? And so looking for just the real words of what is actually in it, right? I think like that's really important. And it goes back to the saying of like our food should come from farms, not factories, you know? It's the wrong kind of plant we're buying our food from, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Like food from plants that grow in the ground, not plants that are big manufacturing plants. You know what I mean? So I think all of that, like the whole health washing thing, I don't know if you've heard the term health washing before.
Whitewashing, health washing.
Yeah, like, or you can say greenwashing if you're looking at like cleaning products and
Eco. Yep.
stuff,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's this marketing that it's so great, but it isn't always.
It's deceptive.
It
Like,
can,
let's
there's a
call it what
lot
it
of,
is.
and that can be so overwhelming, but
Yeah.
that's where you can like really seek to follow people who are speaking about these things because that's how you can learn.
Mhm.
And um I can't even begin to tell you how many. I will give you a book to read that I think was
Please.
really powerful for me that I read years ago about processed food. I'm looking on my bookshelf right now. It's called Salt, Sugar, Fat by Michael Moss.
I've
And
read it.
I love that book. It's a super easy read, but it really helped me to understand why I don't want to eat processed food and the nefarious things that go on behind the closed doors with processed food companies. And I just choose not to support that. And I ultimately, the only way we can change the food systems is with our buying power. We can't lobby the government. We can't lobby the pharmaceutical companies. The only power we have is the products we choose to consume and bring into our life. And that is a whole lot of power. And so when we get better and choosier about what we bring into our body, into our environments, the world will be forced to change. But it starts with us. We cannot rely on any sort of regulatory body or anything like that because they're just not going to operate fast enough for us. And I think like that's where we have to take our power back and become really educated about reading ingredients and understanding and being choosier about what we put in our body. Because although at first you might feel like you're missing out on the normal, right? You quickly discover that you gain a whole lot more than you lost when you get your health in check.
When you feel good. Yeah. And this show wasn't supposed to be a criticism in any way of what it is that you are doing. All we wanted to try to do here today is to open your eyes to what the other options are and maybe give you some food for thought. Like thinking about, am I optimally living my life? Am I at my optimum weight? And we're not going to tell you a number or what that would be. You know that. You decide that for you based on your age and the quality of the life that you have. And if you do need help, getting to the root cause of something, or you do need help to walk through an assessment to see if there are some better options available for you, I would encourage you. Jen is experienced. I rattled off some of the things that she's done for training and education. I would invite you to connect with her and walk through an assessment process to see if there's something else that you can do. But, it's important that life and health start with the first step. And today can be the first step in that journey for you. Jen, where do folks touch base with you? How do they get in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. Just my name, Jen Laurie. That's super simple to find. You will recognize me because of my braids. Everyone recognizes me because of my braids. And also my website is thejenlaurie.com.
And Laurie is spelled, for those who are listening, we do put this up on YouTube, but for those that are just on RSS, it's Jen, Jen, Laurie, Laurie. And you can find her at jenlaurie.com.
Jen Laurie. You got to put the dot in there.
Okay. Yep.
Thejenlaurie.com. Yes, thank you.
Thejenlaurie.com. Beautiful.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for showing us that real power lies in asking better questions, choosing foods that serve us, and maybe refusing to settle for lifelong prescriptions when healing is possible. You've reminded us that the body is wise, and when we listen, when we nourish, and when we support ourselves at the root of our system, the results are far beyond what we get from a lab range. For anyone listening today who's been feeling stuck, misdiagnosed, or dismissed by the system, we want you to know that you are not broken. You just have not been asked the right questions, and maybe today sparked the beginning of that change for you. So seek help. And if you want to learn more, come on back. We always share a bit of insight every week on the show with me. Thanks again, Jen, and we'll see all of you folks at on the next episode. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining me on A Bit of Insight. To get more involved with our wellness community, grab a copy of my book, Live Well, Travel Far, or to explore our travel offerings, visit the website at insightcenterforwellness.com. And if today's episode gave you something to think about, leave a review and please share it with a friend. This is Lisa Mosbey reminding you to live well, travel far, and always follow your insight.